In 1975, a harmless night of mischief in a Connecticut suburb turns tragic.
It was about noon when the doorbell rang. It was the girl who lives behind our house. And she said she had found Martha.
The unsolved murder of Martha Moxley heats up when rumors of a cover-up surface. And the accused, who hails from American royalty, changes his story.
The whole family, they really felt they could get away with things that ordinary people can't get away with.
In the trial of Michael Skakel. Belhaven, Connecticut is an exclusive suburb of New York City, where in 1974 the Moxley family relocate from California. David Moxley is a partner of an international accounting firm in New York City. The family is thrilled with their new home.
It was wonderful. I mean, people greeted us with open arms. We bought this old house, as I said, that needed a lot of tender love and care, and immediately we were attacking the parts of it that needed it the most.
The Moxley's teenage children, John and Martha, are quick to make new friends.
In 1975, I was 17, Martha was 15. Everything in Belhaven was unique at the time. It was a new place. It's a beautiful place. There were friendly people.
Martha is popular at school. Her braces have just been removed, and she's getting interested in boys. And as luck would have it, next door is a family with 6 brothers. They're the children of Rushton Skakel, whose sister Ethel was married to Senator Robert F. Kennedy, a member of one of the most powerful political families in America. Martha is drawn to 17-year-old Thomas Skakel. Thomas also likes Martha. But she's not impressed with Thomas's younger brother, 15-year-old Michael, who has a poor attendance record at school.
Michael had some learning problems, I understand, which are difficult to deal with, but Michael's parents had all the means to deal with all of these things.
Michael and his brothers are being raised by his widowed father.
The father was an alcoholic. Their mother had died. They had no supervision. They were like a tribe of wild Indians over there.
Michael is known locally as a troubled teenager and is frequently seen around Belhaven brandishing a golf club. Martha sees a lot of the Skakel boys and notes Michael's erratic behavior in her diary.
I really have to stop going over there. Michael was being such an ass. They all started fighting because he was being such a big he-man.
October 30th, 1975. Halloween approaches. Teenagers in Belhaven play pranks on their neighbors, as younger children play trick-or-treat.
Trick-or-treat!
The kids pelt cars, houses, and even people with wet toilet paper or eggs. On this particular night, Martha Moxley is late coming home.
She was out and she didn't come home, and I thought, well, you know, she is testing this a little bit lately because she was getting older. And I thought, well, you know, I'll just not panic, I'll just wait a little bit.
Dorothy has to wait through the night and into the next morning before she hears any news of her daughter Martha.
It was about noon when the doorbell rang. It was the girl who lives behind our house. And she said she had found Martha. And I said, well, is she all right? And she said, no. At that point, my one friend, Jean Walker, said, I'll go. You stay here, I'll go. And I said, okay, I will stay in the house. And so she went, and then she came back in the house a couple of minutes later and said that yes, it was Martha and that she was dead.
The police are called. They find Martha's lifeless body under a tree on property that borders the Moxley and Skakel houses. Her skull had been smashed, leaving her blonde hair matted with dried blood. She'd also been stabbed in the neck with a sharp instrument. Her jeans and underwear were pulled down, and the inside of her thighs are smeared with blood, suggesting the killer tried to force her legs apart. But she had not been raped. The police in Belhaven estimate the time of death at around 10 p.m. the night before. Nearby, they find parts of what they think is the murder weapon, a golf club, which has been broken into 4 pieces. 3 are recovered, but the 4th piece, the handle, is missing. When investigators start asking questions, it's revealed that Martha had been with some of the Skakel boys on the night she died. So they pay the family a visit, and almost right away, notice something important.
They found a golf club that matched the murder weapon inside the Skakel house the day that Martha's body was found. And instead of beginning a formal search of the house, getting a search warrant and going through everything, they didn't do that.
Police questioned Thomas and Michael Skakel, who admit they were with Martha the night she died. They said they'd been listening to music with her and some other friends in their eldest brother's car. The 2 boys immediately become suspects until they both provide alibis. Michael tells the police that at around 9:30 p.m., his older brothers, Rushton Jr. and John, ordered everyone except him out of the car. Next, he says his older brothers drove him 20 miles to watch a movie at his cousin's house. He says he didn't head home until 11:30 p.m. and then went straight to bed. Both his brothers and his cousin corroborate his story. Thomas says that after Michael drove to his cousin's, he and Martha were left alone together.
He was fooling around with Martha. They were maybe kissing or something of that nature in the driveway.
Thomas says afterwards he went back to his house to work on a school assignment, and that Martha went home too.
He was the last person observed with Martha before she was found dead the next morning.
Both Thomas and Michael pass polygraph tests, and their alibis check out, so they're ruled out as suspects. Over the coming months, the police pursue dozens of leads, but none pan out. The case goes cold. Then 16 years later, in 1991, a chance event rekindles interest in the case. Another member of the Kennedy family, William Kennedy Smith, makes the news.
William Kennedy Smith was arrested for a rape charge in Florida. And there was a story that mistakenly said he was at the Skakel house that night, the night of Martha Moxley's murder. He was not. But that led to the state of Connecticut reopening the investigation.
William Kennedy Smith is acquitted of rape, and it's formally established he was nowhere near the Skakel's house in 1975. Regardless, public interest in the Moxley case is reawakened, and the state prosecutor's office hires retired detective Frank Garr to give it another look. With the media spotlight back on the Skakel family, Michael Skakel's father, Rushton, decides he must prove once and for all that his children had nothing to do with the murder of Martha Moxley.
A group of private investigators had been hired by the Skakel family to purportedly participate in the reinvestigation of the case. Some of their investigation was leaked.
The investigator's report lands on Frank Gar's desk. It contains a new interview with Michael Skakel that stuns Gar. Because Michael had changed his story. Back in 1975, he told police he'd come back from his cousin's house at 11:30 p.m. on October the 30th and gone straight to bed.
His later story was that he goes out again at 12 o'clock. He goes to Martha's house. He masturbates by a tree. He calls Martha's name. Then he hears noises and he runs home again.
Frank Gar is suspicious.
Why would Michael volunteer that kind of information unless it was to protect himself? Why would he put himself at the murder scene when he wasn't a suspect?
News of Michael's strange account is also leaked to journalist Len Levitt, who now teams up with Frank Gar to work the case. But it's not until 4 years later that Connecticut State Prosecutor Jonathan Benedict believes he's got enough evidence to bring charges.
I became increasingly convinced that we had a real case. So I went from being leery to getting pretty enthusiastic pretty quickly.
On January the 19th, 2000, Michael Skakel is indicted for the murder of Martha Moxley. For the Moxley family, it's an event they never thought would happen.
When I became involved with this case and first met Dorothy Moxley, I mean, just the idea that they would make an arrest, just the idea that there would be an indictment was far from her mind and far from my mind. It was a hope, a dream.
The trial of Michael Skakel begins at Norwalk Superior Court, Connecticut. With the Kennedy on trial, a media frenzy is guaranteed. But for the Moxley family, Michael Skakel isn't a celebrity. He's a killer.
Yeah, it was an out-of-body experience. I felt like, you were sitting outside of yourself, looking at yourself, like so many TV shows or something, listening, and the unreal part about it was all about your family.
I mean, it could turn out one way or the other. And so you just have to, keep your prayers going, and you have to have faith.
Jonathan Benedict begins his prosecution by exploring Michael Skakel's change of story. He reminds the jury that in 1975, Skakel's alibi was that he was 20 miles away watching a movie, after which he returned home and went to bed. But in 1996, Skakel told his father's private investigators that after arriving home at 11:30, he went back outside, masturbated by a tree near the Moxley house, and then ran home.
Why would he change his story? After all these years, why would he change the story?
Benedict puts forward a theory to explain Skakel's new account of his movements. In the years since the murder, crime scene DNA analysis had progressed dramatically. Benedict argues that Skakel realized that should any of his DNA be identified at the crime scene, he needed to have an explanation for why he was there. Benedict suggests that the story about masturbating near Martha Moxley's house was an invention. Having argued that Skakel's account of his movements was a lie, Benedict attacks his alibi. Benedict produces a witness, Andrea Shakespeare Renner, who's a friend of Skakel's sister, Julie. She was at the Skakel's house on October the 30th, and she says she walked home with Julie Skakel at around 9:30 p.m. The same time Michael says he and his brothers were driving to his cousin's. Then Andrea delivers the bombshell that she saw Michael in his house after the car had left.
Michael Skakel never went to his cousins as he had claimed. A friend of his sister's pointed out that after Michael had claimed to have gone to his cousins, she had seen him inside the Skakel house.
If Shakespeare Renner is right, then Michael Skakel's alibi simply can't be true. Next, Jonathan Benedict produces several witnesses who claim Skakel made a series of confessions to them. Tracked down by ex-cop Frank Garr and journalist Len Levitt, they are all alumni of a private school in Maine that Skakel also attended. Key testimony comes from former classmate Gregory Coleman, seen here at a pre-trial hearing. He dies before Skakel's trial, but the prosecution offers his statement as evidence. He claims that the first words Skakel ever said to him were, "I'm a Kennedy, and I'm going to get away with murder." He also says Skakel admitted that he drove in the scar of Martha Moxley because she spurned his advances, and he hit her so hard that the golf club broke in half. Now it's the defense's turn. Despite Skakel's alleged confessions, his attorney, Mickey Sherman, dismisses Benedict's evidence as entirely circumstantial. He argues Michael didn't tell the masturbation story when first questioned in 1975, simply because he was too embarrassed. He reminds the jury that there's no forensic evidence of any kind linking his client to the crime. No blood, no semen, no DNA, and he claims Skakel had no motive. Finally, he reiterates that Skakel was nowhere near the scene of the crime. Brothers John and Rushton Jr. and Skakel's cousin all testify Michael was with them that night, 20 miles away, watching a movie. In his closing argument, Sherman is buoyant, calling the prosecution's case a conspiracy.
He began his summation by saying, and I'm going to quote it just like this because I never forgot it. He started off and he said, he didn't do it. He was almost glib.
But Jonathan Benedict gets the final word. In his closing argument, he pulls everything together.
My point then in closing was to bring all those facts that I laid out in my opening home and relate them to another. This is true because that is true. That is true because this is true. Everything ties in with everything.
Benedict paints a picture of what he thinks happened on October the 30th, 1975. It began, as Michael Skakel said it did, with him, Martha, Thomas, and some friends listening to music in the Skakel car. At around 9:30 p.m., Thomas and Martha leave the car and make out on the property near the Skakel house. But from now on, Benedict says, the sequence of events was very different to Michael Skakel's version. He suggests that rather than drive with his brothers to his cousin's to watch a movie, Michael got out of the car, went to his room, and spied on his brother and the girl he had a crush on, Martha Moxley. Thomas and Martha went their separate ways at around 10. Michael ran after Martha and confronted her. She pushed him away. In a fit of rage, he struck her with his golf club, again and again. With such ferocity, the club broke into 4 pieces.
Police call that overkill, gratuitous violence. And usually it bespeaks a personal rage.
Still holding the handle of the golf club, Skakel drove it through her neck. Realizing what he'd done, he ran home, cleaned his blood-stained clothes, and tried to sleep. But none of this can be true if Skakel's alibi was genuine. So Benedict saves his best for last. Skakel's alibi is that at the time of the murder, he was 20 miles away at his cousin's house. Benedict reminds the jury of the testimony of Julie Skakel's friend Andrea Shakespeare Renner, and how she said she'd seen Michael Skakel at the house after his brother's car had driven away. Benedict then produces a tape of an interview Skakel had given in 1997 to a would-be biographer. He plays part of that tape to the court. In it, Skakel restated his alibi and detailed his movements on the night of October the 30th, 1975. How he and his older brothers had left for his cousins at around 9:30 and returned home at 11:30. Then critically, he added that he remembered his sister Julie had walked Andrea Shakespeare Renner home that night. Andrea had already testified that at around 9:30 p.m., she saw Michael in or near his home after the car had left for his cousins. But this is the same time at which Skakel said he was in that car with his older brothers. If the jury believes Andrea Shakespeare Renner's account, Michael Skakel has just destroyed his own alibi. He wasn't on his way to his cousins, but in or near his own house around the time of the murder. In court, there are collective gasps of understanding.
The killer blow in the trial was Jonathan Benedict's summation, where he presented a scenario that convinced the jurors that Michael Skakel never went to his cousins as he had claimed. It was impossible to disprove. John, you did a brilliant job. The only way you could have disproved it was to have attacked the testimony of the neighbor and saying, you know, you made a mistake. As I recall, Skakel's attorney, Mickey Sherman, made an attempt, but it was a half-hearted attempt.
On June the 7th, 2002, the jury delivered their verdict in the case against Michael Skakel. A generation after the death of Martha Moxley, he's found guilty of her murder. Michael Skakel is sentenced to 20 years to life.
Again today, like I've been doing for 27 years, I'm praying that I can find justice for Martha. You know, this whole thing was about Martha. My statement to the press was, this was Martha's day. I mean, it was justice for Martha. I mean, she's still gone, but it was justice. I really, I think when you do something that terrible, you should be punished. So, I feel this is fair and just.
Still, Skakel's attorney, Mickey Sherman, is determined to fight on.
Let me make a few comments. Yes, we are bitterly disappointed. There's no way to hide it. This is certainly the most upsetting verdict I've ever had or will ever have in my life. But I will tell you, as long as there's a breath in my body, this case is not over as far as I'm concerned.
Since his conviction, Michael Skakel has lost 2 appeals. He'll be eligible for parole in April 2013.
I think he's a very troubled person to this day. I think he was very troubled then. It's pretty clear that he hasn't been able to come to peace with it yet. And that's too bad, but it's understandable.
For Martha Moxley's family, although justice was ultimately done, nothing can replace their loss.
She's never coming back. The potential of what she might have been will never be realized. The relationships with nieces and nephews, in-laws and outlaws, the life experiences will never be shared. So, it's just, it's one of those things where you just, you go on because you have to.
There's no such thing as closure, and that's a crummy word, but you learn how to live with it.